Hello and welcome to Babylon Game Starter. Here we are today to look a little bit more into this project, this framework called Babylon Game Starter. What you see in front of you right here are two WebGPU playgrounds. It's actually the same playground. And you can see over here that we are connected in this multiplayer fashion. And this environment, it's actually a Gaussian splat environment. And you can see I changed the character, maybe over here. I can even change the camera view. So you can switch the camera view now on this particular release, 1.8, this minor release. And over here, I could do the same type of thing if I wanted to. I can go ahead and change the camera view there as well. So really what's going on? I really needed to get this working with WebGPU because there's so many things that are really downstream of WebGPU, including migrating over to Babylon Lite, perhaps. There's a lot of work that you can only, for the most part, accomplish on WebGPU, especially using certain types of compute shaders where you may want to do some inference or having some shared compute between multiple shaders, rendering shaders that kind of share some other compute shader or artifacts in the process. So there's a lot of reasons to want to get to this point. So here we are. We're at the point of WebGPU integration. Besides WebGPU Playground integration, we also in 1.8 have GPU integration across the board. So if you wanted to host on Netlify or Render, this one here is actually on GitHub, using GitHub IO. So this is the same, right? Same starter environments and so forth. And this is running on GitHub IO. It could be running, now when you run on GitHub IO or run on Netlify, by default, you'll just use my practice or hobbyist backend to get access, for like the multiplayer and so forth. And we also have, of course, the end-to-end encrypted chat, and I can go into that another time and date, but you can integrate, chat. This is from another project called Chat Slayer, and it's integrated right within it. You can, go to your heart's content and load a whole bunch of different environments to try them out with different mechanics and clear your cached assets as needed. So you can just use this for playing as well as a nice way to iterate on ideas. Okay, so Babylon Game Starter 1.8 ready to go with the WebGPU and ready to deploy out as we have already to Netlify, to GitHub, to Render, and so forth. And wherever you want to host it, of course, those are the ones that are just out of the box, super quick to deploy to. And of course, you can just run it in local dev if you want to, and just run it on your local machine without going through the browser whatsoever. All right, so what are some of the long-term goals? Some of the long-term goals, I just want to touch base on a few of them, especially with the WebGPU, is to enable, as I had mentioned, inference, even, people that want to design and train, for example. I will be working with students to train their own ResNet, and they will also be, writing out certain parts of the code, implementing certain parts of the code for ResNet 18, which is a nice, very usable type of neural network for, image, processing and, classification of objects and images. And it provides an excellent learning context. So I'm going to be doing that, just using Hugging Face, for example, and doing some training right online, right on Hugging Face. and then exporting the model as an ONNX model and being able to use that runtime then, the ONNX runtime, the Open Neural Network Exchange runtime, and we can use that right on the client in the browser, and you can run the models there. I could run that once, do some training on a, custom training on the ResNet 18, export that, and then go ahead and run that in the browser on the client. It could also be run on the server, but the convenience I see a lot of the times is just having it right there on the client. So, like I said, just doing some training, some special fine tuning, maybe even some changing, editing of some of the methods and so forth, and some of the layers of the code. And then other things as well. Sometimes we do want to do things on the back end, like maybe we want to even have PyTorch available on the back end for certain types of learning situations or certain types of deployments. And we can deploy back-end edge inference using like WASM Edge. And then that way that can get brought in and it can complement what can be done in the browser. So we're in, Babylon Game Starter. Once you have that web GPU, especially on the front end, then you can take advantage of that ONNX runtime, for example, and really leverage the GPU of the client to do some great things within the context of a game. Okay, and then also, as this environment kind of shows, we have Gaussian splats, which are generated from neural networks. And the Gaussian splats have a lot of interesting things to learn about them and to incorporate artistically. Just the expressive kind of means that you have at your disposal with Gaussian splats is incredible. Now, this is just a basic integration at this point, but I am going to do more in building out some tools for Gaussian splats in particular. The tools that I'm building out for Gaussian splats are under their own project, and you can check it out on GitHub, SplatWalk. And those tools are very much in the rudimentary stages right now. So if I show you here, this is for testing and working with like streamed splats. You can see here as an example. And there's a lot to be said for the different considerations when you have to stream splats, when you have to manage all the caching and all the different rendering aspects, the sorting of the splats and this, that, and the other thing. Well, this is going to provide some tools for working with a lot of the integration of the splat technology with this platform. Another thing you should be able to do with Gaussian splats is, as you are working with them, do things such as edit them. So have tools for that, many other things as well. And if you look at this situation right here, we have, all kind of navigation tools. If I wanted to go ahead and turn off certain tools, turn them on, you can do all sorts of things. You can change different settings on it. Let me go over here, and maybe I see something I want to, let's say, get rid of or change. Over here you can change the way something looks. You can also just delete things, edit them, and then go back and save them, and then export them. So there's an entire section down there for exporting streamed, exporting navigation artifacts, and so forth, collision meshes, all that. So that all is living within the context of this greater community, Babylon Game Starter and the Greater Babylon community. Look forward to talking to you soon.